Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Kontora, a Japanese movie from 2019. Now, I already did a mini review of this film on my channel a few years ago when I was covering the 2020 Japan Cuts Film Festival, and I did one video, I think, on that festival, but I did 25 Japanese movie reviews in that video. So if you're a newer subscriber, you haven't seen it, I'll include a link to the description box below, because I thought it was a pretty good video to talk about some of the newer Japanese films at that time. And they're still pretty new. Most of the films I covered in that video were from like 2019, 2020. Kontora was one of my favorite viewings from that festival, and it just popped up on streaming, so I wanted to give it some additional coverage here. So here's the Japan Cut synopsis of the film. Having already lost her mother, high schooler Sora is hit especially hard by the passing of her grandfather. Frustrated and lonely in the countryside with her distant father, she is fascinated with the old man's World War II diary, featuring vivid sketches and stories of the horrors of war, as well as suggestions of treasure that could be buried in the local forest. Appearance of a mysterious mute man, perpetually walking backwards, brings simmering tensions to a boil. Kontora offers a haunting tale of how one era can speak to another, as well as the pain of being lost in memories. An exceptionally accomplished second feature shot in just 10 days, featuring rich black and white cinematography and an evocative score. So I agree with most of that. Our lead character here is a teenage girl. She's got a bit of an attitude. Alright. You know, the spunky lead has been kind of overplayed, I think, in recent years, but I think it's important that you actually make her character likable, right, to the audience, and thankfully I think they do that here, eventually. You know, early on she's not immediately likable, but she certainly becomes more likable as the story moves along. And she is going through more than just your typical coming-of-age stuff. I mean, having a parent and a grandparent die when you're still just a teenager is kind of rough, you know what I mean? And Kontora does address the difficulty of that situation. Now, the runtime is on the long side here. You got 2 hours and 20 minutes in length. It is leisurely paced the whole way through, so you need to have a little bit of patience with this one, because it does feel, early on, it feels maybe a little bit repetitive, and some scenes do go on maybe a little bit too long. But in terms of the structure, it has a mix of like quiet moments and then dialogue scenes, okay? It's kind of like an art house movie that focuses on the plights of this teenage girl and her interactions with other people in this little town. And there's a coming-of-age element to it for sure, as well as a genuine bonding between the various characters that becomes very endearing, actually. So, for example, fairly early on, there's like a little party between family and friends after the grandfather dies, which basically consists of the characters, you know, drinking, eating, talking. But there's a lot of subtext to that scene, and you learn more about all the characters during that scene, and that's how the movie kind of works. Executed very nicely. So even if you have little patches of time where you don't feel like a lot is happening, you just, you know, give it a little, be a little patient, because you're going to get a good dialogue scene soon after that really kind of gives you the depth that you want. The storyline also does flow in some ways that are rather unpredictable, especially during the second half. I didn't really see where this is going, and it's good. Like, the protagonist occasionally reads from her grandfather's diary, which is one of the more important subplots. And then there's that side story that the plot synopsis mentioned about this guy who's a homeless guy walking around this town backwards. He actually walks backwards. Kind of odd, but you could tell this guy has some mental problems. But he becomes like a key character with the daughter and her father, and things that happen during the second half. So it's a very interesting little, combination of different characters that it brings together. And I did enjoy the writing and how what it did with them. The acting's pretty nice. Really like the lead actress, Juan Marui, and always look forward to seeing more stuff when you discover a new talent. I've been covering a number of younger, talented Japanese actresses in recent weeks. Always nice to see good new actors in an industry. It keeps things fresh. You got new people to kind of look forward to seeing in future years, right? Now, from a visual perspective, I like it when the Japanese countryside and the forests are showcased in movies. You get that here. And the cinematography is black and white, which makes it kind of pop differently from a color film. And, as you might expect, given the premise and, the setting, the editing in this film is more calm. You get more lengthy shots to enjoy, lengthy dialogue scenes without an edit. And apparently there was an international creative influence in this film because the director is actually an Indian and the cinematographer is from Estonia. So you get kind of a different little flair in this film. And pretty interesting production given the fact that this was shot entirely in Japan with a mostly Japanese cast and crew. But then you mix in an Indian director and an Estonian cinematographer, and it gives it a little bit of a different feel from a typical Japanese flick. So I think Kontora is just a very well-made movie, top to bottom. If you want a good quality drama, from recent years from Japan, I think it's worth a watch. It's good. And it's currently streaming on Amazon. Pretty easy to find. And as always, folks, I'll see you next time.